Amen. Thankful to be here today, and so the Lord still hears us. And so Carrie got us that Bible for Christmas to read the Bible in a year, and it's been tremendous because you forget about all the stories. You know the stories, you've heard them, but man, there are so many, especially in Genesis. And I was thinking about something, and I wanted to talk about something different, but I just came back to this, and you guys don't have to turn to it because it's long. I don't have time. This is like, if I was up here next Sunday, we could do multiple, break it up, but anyway, I want to talk about Joseph, and I'm glad he doesn't have the title up because I was guilty of it this morning. But my title was going to be, he does. How about that? Enduring without complaining, because on the way up here I was complaining about the cost of contacts. But if we think about it, Joseph is, quite a person. What he endured. And it never once in here said, and Joseph complained to the Lord. Never once. And I, you don't have to put them all up, but I'm going to start in 37. So we know the story of Joseph. So he's Jacob's son, and he's probably he was much younger than his brothers, because, Jacob and Sarah, Rachel, thank you, Rachel. They couldn't, they struggled to have children. And the whole, poor Jacob, he, just because of what he did earlier, he just suffered his whole life because of stealing the birthright that was his anyway. But anyway, so Joseph didn't help himself any when you read it, because he was 17 years old. So the closest one to being 17 is Jenna. So, and his brothers were probably my age and on down, So he would come back and give reports to his dad every day of all the things they were doing wrong, which I'm sure, I get it, it would not have went well. Maybe they should have done better, without a doubt. But then he had an amazing gift. He had dreams and he could interpret them. Amazing gift that God gave him. And so he has the dream that, and I don't have, let's see here, I'll real quick. For behold, we were bringing sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaf stood round about, and made obedience to my sheaf. So he's telling his brothers about this, which probably the wrong things to do right off the bat. But, they're already angry with him because he's tattling on them every day. And so he comes out and he's like, I had a dream, and all of us, we were bringing our harvest in, and we sat and back then they, like all the wheat, they tied together and they were in sheaves, and then they'd beat them to get the grain out of it. Well, anyway, he said, when I sat them all down, yours all bowed down to mine, and mine rose up in the middle. And it said here, wasn't even the sun and the moon, meaning his mom and dad, even bowed down to him. So, and he told him that. Of course, that made him angry. So then he told it to his father and to his brethren. Oh, wait. We'll go again. Let me back up here. It says, and they hated him yet more for his dreams. And yet he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me. And he told it to his father and to his brother, and I'd never caught this before. And it said, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that you hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brother envied him, but his father observed the saying. So his father rebuked him. So he got angry with him at first. And it's kind of odd because in all of his problems, later on, the king of Egypt listened to him, didn't rebuke him. It's kind of, I never caught that before. But even Jacob was like, really? Am I supposed to bow down to you and your mother? So even he had the problems. So his brothers went out into a field, and his dad came to him and said, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out to Vale of Hebron as he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. So he told him, and he went down and found them. And they saw him coming from far off. And of course they said to each other, oh, look, here comes the dreamer. They're making fun. You can see that happening all the time. It happens at work. Oh, here comes the paramedic of the year. The other guys that don't win that award. It just happens. Nothing has changed. So anyway, and they said, why don't we kill him? And we can throw him into a pit. And we will tell Dad that an evil beast devoured him. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. He's like, don't kill him. We can't kill him. Reuben knew, because Joseph was the favorite. And it says, I skipped it earlier. It said that he was, Israel, Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. I skipped that part. So he had this coat on that had many colors. And I remember as a kid down in the basement, we had the little puzzle, and you put the color on him, the coat of many colors on him, and doing that. So anyway, so they sat down to eat bread. Well, they threw him into the pit, and they took his coat. And I don't know where Reuben was at this point in time, but he wasn't with them. And so a group of people came by. A company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery, balm, myrrh. They were going down to Egypt to sell it. So the guy was like, well, what one of his brothers, Judah, said, what profit is it if we kill our brother and we conceal it? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. For he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren were content. So they decided, all right, it's probably best if we don't kill him. So they sold him. They brought him up out of the pit for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. So Reuben, he decided that, okay, at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to the pit and I'll get him out. And I'll bring him home. Well, he got there and it wasn't there. And he wasn't there. And he said he rent his clothes. So he tore his clothes. That was a sign of agony, agony. And so they took his coat back, and they put blood from a goat on it. They dipped the coat in the blood. And they brought it to his father and said, we found it. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. So they were like, is this Joseph's coat? We found this. They're trying to act like they don't know. And he knew it. It is my son's coat, an evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. That was, they let him mourn. Yeah, So the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, and he was an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guards. We'll skip over, that's not part of the story. So Joseph was brought down to Egypt in Potiphar, and he was an officer. He was a captain of the guards, an Egyptian, and he brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which they had brought down hither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him. And he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had put into his hand. So, let's see here. And it says here that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and all in the field. And he had left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. So here he is, this young boy. He was 17, so he might be 18, 19, 20 years old at this point in time. He was a gift from God to Rachel and Jacob, so I'm sure he was perfect. Very handsome kid, worked hard, he never complained. Now he's just been sold. He was thrown in a pit. He was sold. He's now a slave in Egypt, a foreign land. And what did he do? He just worked. And I say it all the time, what Grandpa always said to us, if you're a ditch digger digging a ditch, you dig that ditch as if the Lord asked you to dig it. And I remember that. I talk about it all the time up here, but we were driving by Miss Fry's house, and they had just dug that ditch, and he was talking about that and telling me about it. But that's what Joseph did. He went out and he worked, and the Lord was with him, and the Lord blessed him. So here comes the captain's wife, and she sees him, and she tries to seduce him, and he doesn't let it get to him. So she gets mad and states that he tried to assault her. And the Lord was with them, because right there, most of the time, they've been killed. Instead, they threw him in prison. So once again, here it is again. Oh, man. Why me? Never once. And it would have been in here if he did. Because how many times is it in here and they complained? And so, here's this horrible trial. And it just it keeps getting worse, So, and it said here, and Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So here he is in prison, and now the guard's like, you know what? You can be in charge of all the prisoners in your cell block, whatever, in your cave. You're in charge of them all. And he said he didn't have to worry about anything. He knew that it was taken care of. So that's how we need to be. Are we that way every day? No. But that's how we have to be every day. Go out and do your best. Serving the Lord and do your best, and He'll take care of everything. So it came to pass after these things, and it's hard to I don't remember how long he was in prison, but he was in there for quite a while. So it just happens that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. So the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended the lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, So he was mad at them against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them two guys. They were in charge of all the butlers so he put them in jail. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. So a year. And they both dreamed a dream, and each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told him his dream to Joseph. And he said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine there were 3 branches. And it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. And in 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand in the former manner when thou wast his butler. So he comes in the morning, and these 2 guys are all, man, they're upset, they're sad, and he's like, why are you so sad? What's wrong? Tell me, what's going on? So so he tells them this dream. It's got a good outcome. But so Joseph tells him, But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. So he's like, don't forget me. I didn't do anything wrong to get here. I was sold. I don't even belong here. Just remember me so I can get out of here. So then the baker saw the interpretation was good. Poor guy. And he's like, oh man. He's like, well, I also was in my dream. And behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all the manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat the flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. So yeah, the 2 dreams. So poor, the poor baker. Because he was like, man, that was a great dream. Here's my dream. Oh, I think you were wrong. I hope he just lived with that. I think you're wrong. Up until the end. So anyway, but once again, they forgot him. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years now, that Pharaoh dreamed a dream. And he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine, which were cows. Kine was cows, sorry. Upon one and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the 2nd time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told him the dream, but there was none that could interpret unto Pharaoh. Then he spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house. So basically, he tells all these people his dream. So he said, I got 7 fat cows came up and they were eating, and then these 7 emaciated, starving cows came up and ate them. And he said, and it woke him up, startled him. And he went back to sleep, and he had the same dream. And it was these 7, and we've all seen, when we buy sweet corn, you open up an ear, and wow, that is a beautiful ear of corn. And then you open up another one, it's all knurled, and there's a few pieces here and there, and throw it away. So he said, those really bad ears of corn devoured the good ears. I don't understand what it is. So he called all of his magicians and all these people in, and the Lord hid it from them. And they couldn't figure it out. And he was upset. So the butler comes in, and he even tells the butler about it. And the butler's like, oh, I forgot. There's a guy in prison. He's like, I got a guy. He's like, I know somebody. And he said, so he tells him, and we had dreams, and he told us exactly what our dreams were going to be. He said, it's a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. We told him. And he said, what he told us, everything came. So the Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. I'm trying to paraphrase here. And they brought him hastily, because I'm getting to the point. So they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and they shaved himself. So, he probably had a big old beard by now. So they cleaned him all up, changed his clothes, and he came into Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto him, I have a dream. So he tells and he's like, I heard you can interpret them. And Joseph, he said, it's not me. He said, it's a gift. God tells me the dream. Only dreams can be interpreted from God. So he tells him the dream. And I don't have to go through it again. So Joseph said unto Pharaoh, and he knew it immediately. What a gift that the Lord gave him. The Lord told him the interpretation. And so he said, the 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream it's the same dream. You had the same dream, just 2 different examples. And he said here, basically, you're going to have 7 really good years. The land is going to do wonderfully. You're going to have harvest, and it's going to be great. And then you're going to have 7 absolute terrible years of drought. And everything is going to die, burn up. So, and he said, and for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. So he said, you had it twice. God's telling you that it is without a doubt happening. And for that dream, so now therefore, let Pharaoh look on a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be the store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land shall perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this? This is a man in whom the Spirit of God is. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures and fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and then cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. So Joseph's dream is now coming true. It's the start of it, you know. And he's not even in lineage of the Pharaoh. He should not be anywhere near this. But the Lord had a plan. We don't know what the plan is. You know, we just have to do what Joseph did. And he served the Lord. That's what he did. He didn't complain. You know, man, his brothers hated him. He knew it. His brothers hated him. He got thrown into a pit. I bet he was scared to death when they're dragging him, throw him in the pit. He knew the Lord was with him, but he was probably scared, and he was probably praying. He wasn't, oh, why'd you do this? No, he was praying. Lord, I know you hear me. I know you'll rescue me. I don't know what your plan is, but you gave me signs. So he held on. And then it got worse. They sell him. So now he's in Egypt. Who knows how far away they were. It was quite a travel. I mean, it was quite a travel for them to go when they had to go get food. He doesn't, exactly know where he's at. And he gets sold. Then he gets accused of assaulting a soldier's wife. I mean, he should have been killed. The Lord had, once again, he was praying. Lord, I don't know what this is for, but I know you have a plan. That's not easy to do. Gets thrown in jail. But he just kept doing his thing. He kept serving the Lord is what he kept doing. And he did everything, he did everything unto the Lord. And may we do everything unto the Lord. Everything we do. Serving him, all that. Because, man, the Lord used him, and then, like he said, he not only did he interpret the dream, but he told him what he should do. You need to gather in all the extra from the harvest, and we got to gather it. We got to store it. We need to keep it in these places. I mean, he knew where to put it. Keep it in these cities and this here, and people will sell it to him, and we'll make it through these 7 years of absolute terrible drought. So, with all that, man, Pharaoh raises him up. But he still doesn't know what his dream, he still hasn't seen it yet. But he's just doing, he's living in the world, but he's serving the Lord. And he's making it through. Is it any different than today? Well, the Lord doesn't talk to me, but he does. He's given us all this, all these stories. So, I missed that earlier. So he was 17 when all this started with his brothers. Verse 46 in chapter 42 says that Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. That's 13 years. That's a long time. He'd been in prison for quite a long time. So he went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And I'm sure there were people that they hated him. I'm sure they did. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. So it just produced like crazy. Record harvest every year. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. So the corn crops produced, it said like the sand of the sea. Well, think of the beach. Man, I mean, the corn, it just poured in. So much so that he couldn't even keep it numbered anymore. You know, it's neat when I travel to Champaign in the fall. There's granary, because it's all farmland up there. I mean, it's farmland as far as you can see. In the granaries, when it gets time for harvest, they start building extra storage for the corn. You know, well, that's what he probably had to do, and it was overflowing. You know, he had the Lord. You know, he had a plan. So, in this time, Joseph married. He had 2 sons. Firstborn was named Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So, now here's 7 more years. So now we're talking, he's 37. So, now the famine starts. And it was all over the face of the earth. And he opened up all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. So it was everywhere. So Jacob found out, Joseph's dad, that hey, there's corn in Egypt. And he said unto his sons, we need to go get some. I heard there's corn in Egypt. Go down hither and buy some up. Buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt, but Benjamin was Joseph's brother. You guys go. I don't know why I'm like this, but Jacob was still mourning. Almost, man, let's see, 13 says 20 years. He said, you're not going. You're all I have. So they went down. Yeah, so Joseph was the governor over the land, and he was selling it to everybody. You know, people are lined up, and he's overseeing it all. You know, he's got all the people. And he saw his brother, and he knew him. And he hid himself. He spoke very rough to him. And where'd you come from? And they didn't know him. And Joseph remembered the dreams. And he said, you're spies to see the nakedness of the lands. And they said, no, we're out of food. We are all one man's son. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said, nope, I don't believe you. Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said, nope, you're spies. And he said, and they said, by the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest. He said, that is, let me read this right. That is it that I spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward for 3 days. So he put them in jail. He said, you're spies. He said, if you're not a spy, bring your youngest brother. And Joseph said unto them the third day, this do and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, we are very guilty concerning our brother. And that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear, therefore is this distress come upon us. So now they're starting to think, man, is this is because of what we did to Joseph. And they said one to another, okay, I already read that part. And Reuben answered them, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear, therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And they knew not. So they're actually talking this, and Reuben answered and said, I told you, do not sin against this child. And you didn't listen to me. So he turned himself around, and he wept. He had to leave. And he returned to them and communed with them, and took them from Simeon and bound him before their eyes. So he took Simeon, his brother, and he put him in prison. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provisions for the way, and thus did he unto them. And they loaded up their donkeys with the corn, and they departed. So he's like, all right, I'll give you the food. He took their money. I'll give you the food, but Simeon's staying. This guy's staying. And then he gave them all the food and put their money back on top of each bag. Like, put their money back in there. So as one of them opened their sack to give food to his donkey, he saw the money. It was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brother, my money is restored. It is even in my sack. And it said their heart failed them. They know they're in trouble. And they were afraid. What is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob their father unto the land, and they told him that befell unto them. The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies. And he said, we are true men, we're not spies. So he tells them the whole story. And he said, we had to leave one of them behind and take food, for the famine of your households are gone, and bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that ye are no spies, but that ye are true men. So I deliver you your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. So even Jacob, he just, I understand. I understand, but he just, And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my two sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So Reuben said, you can kill my two boys if I don't bring Benjamin back. And Jacob was like, no, I can't do it. So the famine was sore, and it came to pass so they didn't go back. They didn't go back until they had to. And it says here, the famine was sore, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought, Jacob said, go and buy us a little more food. And Judah said, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. So they're like, if you let him go, we'll get it, but we can't. And Israel said, wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And he said, the man asked us straightly out of state and of our kindred, is your father yet alive? Have ye yet another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words, could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brother down? So Jacob got to the point to where he's like, why did you tell him you had another brother? Well, they were scared. And he's like, he asked us. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny now because they lied to their dad for 30 years, but yet now they were afraid to, because their life was on the line. So, and Judah said unto Israel, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned this second time. So they're like, we've taken forever. I mean, surely we would have been back by now. And so Jacob said, if it must be so now, do this. Take of the best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm and a little honey, spices, myrrh, nuts, and almonds. And take double the money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks. Carry it again in your hand. Peradventure it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise, go again unto the man. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother, and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And the men took that present, and they took double the money in their hand, and Benjamin, and rose up and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. So they not only, he said, don't put it in your hand this time. Don't put it in your bag, just in case it was an accident. And take all this extra stuff. We're going to try and find favor. So, when they went back, Joseph saw Benjamin. And he said to the ruler of his house, bring these men home and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me. And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And they were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time are we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for bondmen and our donkeys. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house, and said, O sir, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass, when we came to the inn, that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. So they're telling him, they think they're done for, because he's taking them aside to another place. And as soon as they get in the door, they're telling them, look, we didn't take the money. This is the money from the, they're probably sweating, this is the money from the first time, and this is the money to buy new. I don't know who did it. I don't know how it happened. They're going on and on. They're worried. And he said, and Joseph says to him, peace be to you, fear not, your God and the God of your father hath given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money, and he brought Simeon unto them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys food. And they made ready the present And they made ready the present against Joseph came at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. So here they are bowing down to him. And he asked them how they were doing. Is your father well? The old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive? And they answered, Thy servant our father is in good health. He is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obedience. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw his brother Benjamin. And he said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chambers and cried and wept. And he washed his face and went out and refrained himself and said, Let's set on bread. And they set on for by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which did eat with them by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth, and the men marveled at one another. And he took and sent messes unto them from before him, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs. And they drank, and they were merry with him. So here, he finds out that his dad's alive, and he's doing well. And he saw Benjamin, and he lost it. He had to go in the other room and cry. And so then he comes out, gets his composure, and he sits down, and he eats with them. And I bet it was a wonderful meal. And he gave Benjamin 5 times what he gave them. So they, in the back of their mind, they got to be thinking, man, what is going on? And so he told them, he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill them in sacks, which food as much as they can carry, and put everybody's money back in his sack. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. And he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, and they were gone unto a city, and yet not far off. Joseph said unto his steward, Up, follow after the men, and when thou do overtake them, say unto them, Wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? So he's setting them up. So it is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth, yet have done evil in so doing. And he overtook them, and he spake unto them these same words. And they said unto him, Wherefore saith my Lord these words? God forbid that thy servants should do according to these things. Behold, the money which we found in our sacks' mouths we brought again unto thee out of the land of Canaan. How then shall we steal out of thy Lord's house silver or gold? With whomsoever of thy servants it be found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondmen. And he said, Now also let it be according unto thy words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and ye shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man's sack to the ground and opened every sack. And they searched and began at the eldest and left at the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. They rent their clothes and loaded every man's donkey and returned to the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. So here they go. They were like, we didn't take anything. We didn't even have our bags. So they were like, fine. And they said they got down and they hastily, they're opening that stuff up. They're like, we didn't do it. Their money's sitting on top of their food corn again. They get down to the last one, Benjamin's bag. Oh. And they're like, all right, we don't have it. I know they were getting more confident with each one. We don't have it. And they opened that. They rent their clothes. They tore their clothes. They were done. They just like, oh. They were speechless. So they loaded everything up and they went back. So they come back to Joseph's house, and Joseph says, What deed is this that ye have done? Know ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, God forbid that I should do so. But the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace unto your father. Then Judah came near unto him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servants, saying, Have ye a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. And thou saidst unto thy servants, Bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. And we said unto thy Lord, The lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And thou saidst unto thy servants, Except your youngest brother come down with you, ye shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came up unto thy servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, Go again and buy us a little food. So they're retelling the whole story. We cannot go down if our youngest brother isn't with us. Then will we go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. And thy servant my father said unto us, Ye know that my wife bare me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, Surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not once, not since. And if ye take this also from me, and mischief befall him, ye shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servants shall bring down the gray hair of thy servant our father with sorrow to the grave. So they told him the whole story that took place. And they're like, What do you want us to do? If we don't bring Benjamin back, our father's going to die. He is so grieved. And they truly think that Joseph is dead at this point. They don't have a clue. And they're distraught at this point. They know what they did. And they are scared. Because he said, Whoever took my cup, you're going to be my servant forever. So they tell him this whole story. And he says, For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father. And Joseph couldn't refrain himself anymore. And he cried, Because every man to go out from me. So he told everybody else to get out. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said unto his brother, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brother, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and the Lord of all his house, and the ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. And he said, Hurry up, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. So they went back, and they brought he said he fell upon Benjamin's neck and wept after he got done telling him all this. And he kissed all his brethren. They wept. And so I'm gonna stop reading. But the bottom line, I mean, he never complained. And even when he finally revealed himself, he said, it had to happen. The Lord knows what's going on. You know, he knew that the famine was coming that would wipe out the earth. And that's what all that dream was getting him ready for. And all of that was to save Israel and his people. All of that to save his people. And so, you know, they had a great reunion. And Joseph was so trusted and endeared and loved by Pharaoh that he gave him a section of land for his family. You know, because he's like, hey, I need to bring my family in. And he's like, go ahead, I will give you this section of land. And it was a wonderful piece of land. And they lived there for a very long time. You know, and they prospered. But all of that, man, it just amazes me. You know, we go through all this stuff in life, and we just, you know, may we be like Joseph and just be, you know, Lord, I don't understand this, but I know, probably shouldn't even say that. Man, it's going to be hard. But I mean, he just endured. He just endured, and he did every day the best that he could do. And he found favor with basically his enemies. And he was able to, you know, through Joseph, the Lord set up everything, you know, and saved them. And just, it's a wonderful story. I know I've talked about it before, but it just, you know, a couple things that I caught before that I'd never heard or didn't catch before, but it just impressed me that, you know, all this stuff, I mean, through all of it, I mean, he was in prison for 10, 12 years. I don't know the time frame exactly, but he was 30 years old when he was finally brought out of prison and put in charge of stuff. That's a long, I mean, and he was 17 when all this started. So, that's a long trial, you know, but the Lord was with him the entire time, you know, and gave him, even though it wasn't a great place, he gave him peace, you know. Everywhere he went, he was successful. So may we be more like that and just not complain to the Lord. Talk to him, but not complain to him. So anyway, that's all I had.